recording the session, and we will be emailing you the link for the entire session at the end. So do not worry about jotting down notes or anything if you are planning to. Be attentive. That's most important. Let's get the maximum out of the webinar today. I might bring in certain new concepts. The idea has been to when Saurabh called me up to ask me to speak to people and talk to people and what topic was to be you know would be the most relevant today. And I thought, being from academics, like many of y'all are as well, but there are also people from various walks of life. Being from academics for almost more than 17 years now, I think teaching and learning has been always been very close to my heart. And over the past 1.5 months or so, we've all had this huge, paradigm shift, if you may say so. That we've been moving away from the traditional modes of learning and forced to accept the new form of learning and teaching in various formats and platforms which are out there. There have been n number of webinars and sessions being created on how to deliver lectures online, or how to work with various platforms and LMSs and stuff like that. Last week, in fact, I was delivering a session on technologies for education, in the post-COVID scenario for academics, and that was for principals and vice principals across India. Uh, Today it's a little different. Today I do not want to talk about the technologies per se, but the very important aspect of learning. Delivery. Everybody, I think, probably now has become used to. How to deliver a session. So everybody is comfortable today. If Saurabh just sent out an email that we will be using Microsoft Teams, all of you all were able to log in. I got a couple of messages from some people who were having some trouble, but apart from that, majority everybody could join in. So today's session will be a little more than about online tools, but more about the art of learning itself. And the art of learning per se does not change whether you are in lockdown mode or you are not in a lockdown mode. So even if you are going to a classroom. However, I've tried to keep this today's session relevant for online learning mostly. But majority of the things which I will be sharing with you will actually be applicable even in an offline mode of learning. Okay, so there's nothing to differentiate between the practices and the techniques which you use online versus offline. However, there are certain small changes which you might need to do to adapt those techniques. Okay, so let me start off by the very uh, first thing is why to call it art of learning and why not the science of learning. you know I I believe that every teacher believes, or at least has read in the science of learning, and they keep doing that. And that's important that we keep studying the science of learning and teaching, and that's how it improves. However, learning from a learner's perspective is very, very unique. And I will share some research as well as we go along, that learning is very, very individualistic. At the same time, no matter how much science we build into it and how much research we do about the fact of how people learn, it finally boils down to an individual and individual choices. And therefore, I would like to give you certain insights, okay, of collective wisdom. Okay, now this is not something which I have come up on my own, but this is a collective wisdom of lots of people around the world and lots of things which have been told and said, and I've tried to bring all of these together in a nutshell. Okay, so as we go along in this presentation, I would, at the end, I would share all the links. These links are either the sources from where I've taken some material. Also, at the same time, there are links which are, additional reading and videos to watch and stuff like that. Please do that. Have a look at those. You will get a far more big, far deeper insight into what I've been speaking today. So, art of learning is what we are going to talk about. And as I was talking about the research, this is a research which I came across in a TED talk by Dr. Marshak. Okay, and she says that like 40 years of research on on learning styles has found that matching technique styles to learning styles makes no difference at all. There is a lot of talk about active learning, passive learning, teaching methodologies, teaching techniques. And I was shocked to see this video. I've over the years read so much of content and research on how these various pedagogy is being developed, and methodologies are being used. But when it comes to learning, it really the research actually Dr. Marshak talks about, it didn't really make a difference. In her own experiments, Dr. Marshak found that students learned the same way, regardless of the way material was presented to them. Whether it's more visual, so talking about visual learners and auditory learners and spatial learners, all of that, finally it didn't really matter too much. It didn't really change a lot of things on a broader spectrum. Each individual topic might be different, and there are topics which would be more visually pleasing or easier to understand. There will be topics which would be more easier to understand in a spatial domain. However, that's not a generic rule for everybody. So it depends on the topic, not rather on the an entire subject cannot be taught that way probably. So there's a video, that's the link which I've put at the bottom is the link for, as I said, I'll share all these things with you. No need to take screenshots or trying to type or copy all those things down. But that that talk is a good talk. Everybody should have a if you have the time, just go through them. The second aspect which I want to talk about today, and which I will be actually talking in much more detail as we go along, is the role of memory in learning. Memory is the expression of what you have learned. Okay, now whatever you learn, okay, everybody talks about short-term memory, mid-term memory, long-term memory, and how things move from this. You might have read about it. If not, I will try to touch upon it in detail, and then I'll give you some links as well. Now, the role of memory is very, very important. Now, if you want to learn something, okay, how long does it take to learn something new? Okay, let's just think about it. Okay, so if you look at a child, okay, if a child wants to learn how to brush his or her own teeth, okay, all those who have had children in their house would know it takes time, right? They do it all the wrong ways. You have to help them. They try and try and try and try, and one fine day they start brushing their own teeth. And that's true for every skill which a child develops in his lifetime or in her lifetime. As adults, the rule still remains the same. Okay, nothing changes, but the memory, the way it works, is far important to understand. I everybody, you might have heard this. To learn a skill in 10,000 hours. I don't know if anybody's. I think most of you all might be familiar with it. But if not, then let me just tell you what this thing says. That there has been research that if you want to become very good at something, let's say you want to become a very, very good swimmer, okay, what does it take? It requires you to do concentrated, okay, focused, training for minimum 10,000 hours. So if you want to learn, say, guitar, if you want to play a guitar, you cannot learn a guitar. Maybe you can learn the chords of a guitar in 7 days or 6 days or whatever, in maybe 20 hours or whatever. But you will never be able to play a guitar well, okay, or become a musician, okay, um, in just 21 days or in 15 days or 1 week courses. Okay, it takes years of practice. It takes years of practice. So 10,000 years roughly equates to actually 10 years of your life. Okay, if you every day practice for a couple of hours every day, and that will take you 10 years to become a master of some skill. Okay, whatever skill it may be. There's a very good article, because I come from an IT background, a computer science background. There's a very nice article called How to Learn Programming in 10 Years. Okay, so How to Learn Programming in 10 Years is an article which everybody should read if they are trying to learn a programming, language. I know lots of people trying to learn a new language, or if you're learning a new language, it's different from learning programming. If you already know programming, maybe you can learn a new language maybe in a few days. Okay. However, if for somebody who doesn't know programming, say for example, somebody who's a chartered accountant and during this lockdown wants to learn programming, then he or she cannot do that in 21 days. So there is this nice cartoon script which is there, which I found online. Uh, about how you can learn programming in 21 days. Okay. So, junking the 10,000 hour rule. So what do? You start day 1 to day 10, you start learning all the basic details about a programming language like functions and arrays and variables and stuff like that. In the day 11 to 21, you start understanding the higher concepts like flow pointers, references. This is for C++ language. Okay. Polymorphism, inheritance and stuff. And as you go along, from day 22 to 697, that's basically 2 years. Okay, you will be able to do a lot of recreational programming and working with it. In the year 3 to 7 years, you will be doing a lot of interaction with people. Then you will start studying theoretical physics. Then you will study biochemistry, molecular biology, genetics. And over a period of 10 years, you will build a flux capacitor which will allow you to go back in time and then you kill your younger self on day 21, and that is how you will be able to learn C programming in 21 days. Okay, so it basically means that if you can't do it. Okay, so there's teach yourself C++ in 21 days does not exist. Okay, you can learn C++ as a language if you know programming. Okay, you will know the basic constructs. Okay, that's it. Okay, so that's a very important thing to keep in mind whenever we are starting to learn. Now, enough of the pessimistic talk. Don't worry, I'm not here to tell you that you can't learn something in a lockdown. You can. It's just that you have to be realistic about how much you will be able to learn and how you will be able to retain it. Okay, and that's what we are going to concentrate on. It's not like doing 10 courses in 20 days. What are you going to do with those 10 courses, or completing those certifications, if you're not going to be able to utilize those skills in real life? Okay, in your job, in your family life, wherever you want to implement it, it needs to be implementable. And for that, that's the most important thing. So there is nothing more valuable than a practical skill you can learn. Okay, when you throw yourself into the deep end of the venture, you have to challenge yourself. If you are somebody who knows programming, don't get into a basic programming course. If you are somebody who knows accounting, don't get yourself into a fundamentals of accounting course. If you are someone who knows chemistry, if you're a chemistry postgrad, don't get yourself into a chemistry 101. You need to challenge yourself. You need to be looking at something. You need to be learning something which is, challenging for you. At the same time, because if it is challenging, the rewards are higher. The satisfaction of getting to know that and to be able to learn that is much more. Okay, so doing courses which you already know are you already know, and you're just doing it for maybe a certificate, is useless. It's absolutely useless. Okay, so challenge yourself. Okay, now let's talk about how to increase your memory. How can you help yourself? And that's very important. There's something called a self-preservation. Self-preservation means that you try to do the best for yourself so that you are able to learn. Okay, so this is from a learning perspective of self-preservation. Of course, there are other perspectives of self-preservation, but unless you take care of your own self, you won't be able to learn well. Okay, and the first thing which you need to take care of is your sleep. Okay, now sleep and memory. There are enough studies out there to tell you that there are too many. Uh, there is a huge correlation between the quality of sleep, the hours of sleep, and your memory capabilities. Okay, Saurabh, if you're there, can you mute somebody's mic is on?
Yes, yes, I'm doing it.
Yeah, all right. I would request everybody to just mute their mics, please. The quality of the voice would be far better if everybody is on mute. Okay, so sleep well. How can you get better sleep? What are the things which, and these are some things which I will tell you, no secrets, but actually you need to implement them. If anybody tells me that, they don't get sound sleep, or they are, they don't get sleep, like, there are people who will tell me that, it takes me hours to go to sleep. I'm on the bed waiting for an hour waiting for sleep to come. and there are some people who are fortunate enough to fall to go to sleep, in less than a minute. Okay, and I'm one of those fortunate people. Now, I'm not fortunate because I was blessed with some special, gift from God. It's because there is a set pattern to sleep which you need to understand. Okay, it's part of your self-preservation, and some people like me learn this without having read any books or read any articles. For people who haven't learned it on their own, they need to know how to do this. So the first thing that you need to do is you need to calm yourself down. Okay, if you are gonna watch a thriller movie, or you're gonna take up some very important email just before you go to sleep, and think about strategizing for tomorrow, and what is gonna happen, and how you and what were all things which have happened today, and I'm going to recollect all of those things. There are people who will tell you to do that. It's all good, for your for going and putting it all through your brain. But the problem which you're going to face is that you're probably going to lose sleep. Okay, and you're going to take a lot more time to go to sleep. Okay, so do not strategize too much. Calm yourself. Once you decide that you're going to go to sleep, okay, then automatically 15 to 20 minutes before that, you stop, just become calm. Okay, don't do anything which will be creating anxiety. Okay, develop a routine and stick to a routine. Okay, now whatever that routine may be, some people develop a routine in terms of brushing the teeth, having a glass of water, or having a glass of milk, or whatever. Develop a routine. Okay, changing into your sleepwear, whatever, pajamas or whatever. Develop that routine. Okay, have build your bed, your place to sleep the way you like it, and keep it that way. Okay, hydration again is another important aspect. It is always important that for good sound sleep you are adequately hydrated, so that you don't feel thirsty with middle of the night. At the same time, you don't drink too much of water, so that you have to go to the loo in the middle of the night. Okay, both the ways you will lose your sleep. Okay, so you may fall to sleep, but then again you have to wake up either to drink water or to go to the the toilet, which is again, basically you again have to go back to zero again, put yourself back to sleep. So it's important to be hydrated to the right amount. The doctors would generally say stop drinking at least an hour before you go to sleep. Okay, that's how you develop certain things, but it depends on an individual. So identify your hydration requirements and drink accordingly, but make sure that you don't drink too much, don't drink too less. Okay, and there is a huge amount of research which has been done. There is a sleepfoundation.org, and there is this article which you can go and look at how to improve your sleeping habits. Okay, and this will help you tremendously in everything. Okay, another aspect which many people don't really believe in too much, or don't really understand too well, is taking breaks when you are learning. Okay, when you are studying or when you're trying to learn something, it's important to take healthy breaks. Now, the general rule of the thumb is that every 20 minutes take a 20-second break. Okay, because what happens is generally we end up, once we are engrossed in something, we end up spending hours, and suddenly we don't know that we spent so much of time. Now, why do we take this short break of 20 seconds, every 20 minutes? Especially when we are studying online, it's important to relax our eyes. When I'm looking at the screen continuously, it is going to have an effect on how I read. It will slow down my learning capabilities. Even though if I don't stop, it will slow down drastically. So taking this break actually is more efficient, and it's more productive. Okay, and make sure you start, when you take this break, don't look at your mobile phone. Okay, then again you're concentrating on a screen. You need to look at something which is at least 20 feet away. Okay, so you need to look at out. Maybe if you're near a window, that's great. Then you can look outside the window. Okay, so you establish a point of sight which is at least 20 feet away, so that your eyes get relaxed. The muscles in your eyes, because they're concentrating towards fixed focal length, they get this relaxation, and you are looking towards a longer perspective. This will help you. Take this break. One surefire way of improving your productivity when learning online. Okay, so these healthy breaks, apart from just 20-second breaks, what you can do is sunlight and fresh air is always good. Air conditioning is great in the summers, but believe me, fresh air is vital. Okay, also, so you there are breaks like so a long break is where you can actually go for a walk. You can come back in 5-10 minutes. A good nap is also productive, but a nap means not more, less than 10 minutes, but not more than 20. Okay, so 10 to 20-minute naps. This is if you are studying for a long duration, and if you've already studied for like, let's say 2 or 3 hours, then taking a longer break, like meditation, yoga, breathing exercises, even making a phone call and talking to your friends, or having a face-to-face conversation with your family members is a great idea. Okay, again, if you're doing online learning, stay away from again looking into a screen like a mobile phone. Okay, when you're taking these breaks. Okay, because again you will be, your eyes and your brain is again in that same mode there. All right. The next point is location. Now this is very, very important. When you are there, when you want to study, when you want to learn something, you need to create an environment, an ambience for yourself. So you need to identify a location where you will going to be studying. So when you want to learn, this is a small checklist which you need to follow. Okay, identify a distinct space where you will be able to learn. Okay, so it could be a table, it could be whatever, whether it's inside your house or even slightly outside your house. It depends on what you want to do, depends on the kind of homes you have. Identify a location and stick to it. Okay, avoid areas which you use for sleeping. Okay, so don't do it on your bed, because your bed, automatically your brain tells you to go to sleep. Okay, so one of the two things will happen: either you will start sleeping because you go onto your bed to learn online, or secondly, you might lose sleep when you actually want to go to sleep. In either case, you're being counterproductive. So please identify a unique space where you will be able to study or learn. Avoid areas which have a lot of noise. Obviously, if possible, create a distinct, well lit space. Okay, so use a lamp if required. You know, Make sure it's not very, it's not near a kitchen or something like that. Okay, always keep water handy, because that's another irritant. People have to either become thirsty, and then they have to leave their flow, break the flow, and in between, and to go to fetch a glass of water, or even to eat, if you feel a little bit hungry, keep some healthy snacks like nuts, and berries or whatever near you. So some fruit maybe, but just keep it next to you, so that if you feel like eating something, that's a good way to do that. Don't keep biscuits, don't keep chocolates. Again, sugar and all of that will create a problem in your learning. Keep relevant information for your course easily available. So keep your note materials, books, whatever, on very, very close to you. Okay, when you sit for studying. Okay, that's important. Okay, because again and again, trying to find out where it is, moving around is not a great idea. Okay. Now, let's talk about something called as the Pomodoro technique. Now, what is this Pomodoro technique? This Pomodoro technique is a 6-step program, okay, of how you can focus your energies to study more. This is a very good, technique to allow you to concentrate and get more done in the least amount of time possible. Okay, so up till now, I've told you a lot of generic things. I don't know if many people know about this technique, but this really works. I've tried it a lot, and whenever I have had to study something in a short time, this really helps. Okay. Now, what do you do? So you, first of all, the 6-step process goes like this. The first step is to decide what you want to do. So that's the task. You need to identify what you're going to be able to learn right now. Okay, and then set a timer for 25 minutes. Okay. Now this 25 minutes is an arbitrary number. You could change that, but 25 minutes is generally a good idea. Okay, because you can do a huge amount of concentrated studying or learning for 25 minutes. Anything larger than 30 minutes is a stretch on your brain. Okay, anything shorter than 15 minutes, you might not be able to comprehend the entire concept which you want to grasp. So roughly 25 minutes is a good time to keep. Okay, it's an arbitrary number, but you can slightly change it. Once you set a timer, you have to set a timer for this. Okay, this cannot be done like just by looking at the clock, because you will lose track of time. And then once you start the timer, you start working on what you are trying to learn, and at the end of the timer, you stop. No matter what you're doing, you have to stop. Okay, you put a check mark on the piece of paper of up till where you have reached what you have studied, and then you take a short break. Now this short break would be 3 to 5 minutes. Okay, so you do this 25 minutes, concentrated, identify what you're, hopefully you've achieved the task. If not, doesn't matter, you stop there. You again, take a short break for 3 to 5 minutes, go back to step number 2, that is again set your timer to 25 minutes, and again start working on the next thing, okay, or whatever is remaining. Again, after 25 minutes, you have to stop as the timer and you have to take a short break. And how do you take a short break? I've already explained to you how to take healthy breaks. Okay. And then after you've completed 4, so each iteration is called a 1 Pomodoro. Okay. So after 4 Pomodoros, so after taking 4 short breaks, okay, so you will take a long break. And this long break is anywhere between 15 to 30 minutes, okay, where you have to, go back to zero and again start with, identifying what is the new task which you want to learn. So if it's a task which you can complete roughly within 100 minutes, this is the best way to go through it. Okay, you can challenge yourself, you can try to complete it, and you will be able to do that as long as you make sure that you set a timer for yourself. Setting the timer is vital. Okay, there are a lot of other time management tools available and apps available. There is a link which I've shared at the end of the on the bottom of the slide, which you can use to handle all of this. Pomodoro technique is just one of those techniques, but it's a really, really effective technique. Okay, from my experience. Okay, of all the techniques which I've used, Pomodoro has really helped me a lot. So try it out if you haven't used it already. Okay. The next thing is something called as metacognitive strategies. So now what is metacognition? Metacognition is an awareness and understanding of one's own thought process. Okay. Now, lots of the times people, like for example, if you listen to me and you identify, okay, so I'm going to give you so many different techniques and things which you need to do. That's good. Listening to someone else is good, but listening to yourself is even better. Okay, identify what works for you. Okay, now especially if you are a young learner, or if you have a young learner at home, like if you have a child who's studying, explaining to them that they need to understand how they learn is very, very important. And I've seen people who at a very even at age 30 or 40 still don't know themselves of how, what is their learning technique. Okay, they don't know how they learn the best. Okay, so for example, I know that I will learn the best if I'm challenged. Okay, I have to have a challenge. So like Pomodoro technique works really well with me, because I have this timer sitting on my head, and I have to finish it within that time, and I will be able to do it if it is the case. If you don't give me a timer, or if you don't put a some deadline on my head, it will be very difficult for me to complete it within the time. I'll stretch it to I'll stretch it and stretch it. So each person has his own way of studying. The same pressure might not work for somebody, but generally pressure works. Generally, as a um, majority of the people, challenging themselves will work. Okay, now challenging could be in terms of time, it could be in terms of something else. Okay, but challenging yourself does work. Okay, some people I know would study standing up, some people would study walking, some people would study. I understand that, but with online learning, you are stuck to a chair. Okay, so unless you put it on a mobile phone and then start walking, it's not going to happen. All right, in a lockdown also there is a problem that how much can you walk, especially if you're in an apartment style living where your homes are small. You can't really walk more than 300 uh, whatever meters or whatever. So sorry, not even meters, square feet or 300 feet or something. So you need to be very, very careful on how you do this. Okay. So metacognition, you need to listen to your inner voice. So there is an inner voice and an inner ear, So you have to listen with your inner ear to your inner voice. Now, for this metacognition, I've identified some 5 steps which you need to do. So first of all, you need to ask yourself, what task do I need to complete? Okay. Now this task could be review the assignment, scan the chapter, read through a quiz, prepare for a group project, make a PPT, whatever it is. You need to identify the task which you need to complete first. Second, you need to know about that topic. Okay, so you need to know what are the familiar terms. You need to know what are the assignments all about. You need to know how it's going to be assessed. Whether things are important. You need to know that. So once you know what you need, and once you know the basics about your topic, then you can try out with the difficult stuff. So now you need to know what is new to you. What you already know is fine, but what you don't know and what you need to learn is very important. So once you know the basic terminology, you know the basic, jargon, that's when you can actually get into the difficult stuff. Okay, so you need to formulate questions to answer as you read, and plan to extra time to spend on the difficult topics. You need to plan. People generally tend to spend a lot of time on the easier topics because it's far more rewarding, because you can solve it, you can get it. So it's rewarding, and people end up spending a lot of time on the things which are easy and a very short amount of time on the things which are difficult. And especially in an online mode of learning, where nobody is really actually getting to question you in a live session, or like a teacher, asking you questions and checking for your grasp. It becomes very easy to skip over the difficult topics. Okay, so it's important that you concentrate on the difficult topics, give yourself more time. And then what approach will you use to learning is very important. Okay, so whether you will be taking a book and jotting down the notes, whether you'll be making flashcards, whether you will be drawing a mind map, whether you will be writing down tasks to do, it depends on the technique. And there are lots of techniques, and everybody needs to develop their own and use multiple techniques, because each topic, each thing which you want to learn is different. Okay, so taking down notes in itself is an entire topic of its own. Okay, so I can do an entire session on just how to take down notes. Okay, and there are so many different note taking techniques, okay, out there, and if you don't know them, learn. There are lots of ways of doing it. Okay. All right. So you need to identify the approach which will work for you in this difficult situation, and then you need to assess what you have learned at the end. So once you've created your material and gone through and you spend the time and everything, you need to assess whether. So what you can do is, you can, in your mind, if you don't have a real person because you're in a lockdown, in your mind you can try to teach somebody. Okay, you can try to explain that topic to somebody else. If you are able to explain that topic to somebody else, believe me, you've learned it well. Okay, so I always believe that once I can teach something, I know that thing very, very well. Okay, and that's true for metacognition. Metacognition says that you need to talk to yourself as if you're training yourself. So you become your teacher and you become your own student, and you teach yourself. You talk to yourself as a third person, and automatically, if you are able to convey these ideas correctly, you will have known that you will know yourself that you've learned the topic well. And if you don't, you will know which topics or which parts you struggle with. And that's an important thing to be able to have an inner voice and to have an inner ear, to be able to listen to yourself. Okay, to be able to talk to yourself. This is a very important technique in metacognition. Practice. It's very, very important that what you learn, you implement. Okay, for example, today you are learning something new, maybe. Okay, so if you talk about the Pomodoro, or if I talk about the sleeping methodology, or if I talk to you about note taking, unless you apply them in real world, you're not going to learn anything. Okay, you need to be able to do that, and once you apply, you should also reflect on what you have learned. Okay, that is to assess whether that technique which you used, did it work for you. Okay, and that's how you're going to improve yourself. Okay, so it is important to repeatedly practice new skills. Okay, apply the knowledge in your different contexts and reflect on what you have learned as you go ahead. Otherwise, it's something which you just learn and then you forget it. Okay, it's very easy to learn something and forget it, right? And the difference between learning something and that thing staying with you is the amount of practice and reflection which you do on it. So you need to apply and you need to reflect. The next thing which I want to talk about is something called as reading techniques. Again, there are huge amount of research on how people should read. What are the best reading techniques out there? This is one technique which I want to share with you. It's called the SQ3R. Okay, SQ3R was developed by Francis Robinson, and this is a book. It's called Effective Study. Okay, it's a very old book, 1946. It was released in. But this SQ3R basically stands for survey, question, read, recall, and review. Okay, so the first thing which you need to do is you need to skim through the topic. So if you want to study something, you quickly go through the entire topic. Okay, you at least know the subtopics in it, what are the things which are there, the basic diagrams. You just go through the things like that. You will have a rough idea of what you need to do, how difficult the topic is or how easy the topic is. Second is you need to list out several questions of you have about the content, so you need to be able to identify what questions you need to ask yourself, and then you go and read thoroughly to answer those questions. So it's a comprehension for yourself, so you need to identify the basic question. And so for example, if you're looking at a book like let's say a story, then you would actually quickly go through the books and through the book, and you will be seeing the different character names and the different plots which are out there. Then you need to ask yourself what certain relevant questions of who these people are, why are they in those situations which they are in, how did they arrive, and how did they solve them. These kind of questions need to be built into your mind when you start reading, so that when you are reading, automatically there is a behind your mind, in the back of your mind, there is a checklist which is automatically getting ticked once you start answering those questions. Oh, so you know that answer when you read something, you know that this is important, this is relevant, because it answers one of the questions which you had about the topic. Okay, so that's a very, very important thing. Before you start reading, you have a list of questions which you need to answer. Once you have done that, once you have answered your questions, then you can recall from your memory what you have learned. Try to just revise in your mind whether you be with as I said, you can talk to yourself, so it's pretend to tell someone else, that what you have learned. And once you do that, you know that you have recall value, and once you have recalled it well, that means it will stick probably well in your long term memory. Okay, and then finally is review the material with your closer focus, then you can actually go into depth of
Okay.
certain things and look at some specific sentences or statements or formulas or whatever the case may be in much more detail as step 5. So this is called the SQ3R: the survey, question, read, recall, and review. Okay, so the 3 R's are important, but most important is that you start off with the survey and identifying the list of questions which you want to study. Without all of this, it won't be very well. So this is a very good reading technique. It doesn't matter whether you're reading a book, whether you're reading an article, whether you're reading a research paper, whether you for this can be applied in any area, whether you're reading online or offline. Okay, it will really work for you. Okay, so as I said, this was developed in 1946 when no internet was there. So and this reading technique still holds true. Okay, the more relevant to the online mode of learning is also what we call as video comprehension. Okay, so now for example, right now you don't have any book to read, you are looking at a presentation, you're probably looking at a video of a person, and you're trying to learn something new. So video comprehension techniques are slightly different from reading comprehension, because you can't skim through the material beforehand and all of that. So one of the things, so there is two classes. Please understand there is in video comprehension there are two types of videos, one which is recorded and the other which is live, and the techniques are different for both. Okay, so let's look at each one of them. When you talk about the recorded video lectures, in recorded video lectures you have to you have the facility of pausing and and writing a brief summaries. So if you're taking down notes, you can always keep pausing. Do not watch an entire video which is, let's say, more than 5 minutes or 10 minutes. Don't watch it at a stretch. Okay, pause it after every maybe a minute or couple of minutes and take down your notes. Okay, pausing is a very good way of making sure that you don't miss out on something while you are writing. Okay, and therefore this thing of writing summary is not applicable when you are in a live lecture or a webinar like this. Do not write it out. Do not write anything down when you're in a webinar, because the moment you start writing down something while in your live lecture, the chances are you will miss some important point. Okay, you will lose contact, you will lose the verbal cues which are happening, visual cues which are happening. So please don't do that. Okay, in a recorded lecture, if a PPT is available, download it, and if possible, print it. Okay, and take down the notes on that PPT itself. So you can print out the slides, maybe 4 slides in a sheet or whatever, depending on the font size, and actually take down the notes in there. So you don't have to write everything down. You just need to write some things which are additionally not there on the slide for your own self. Okay, that's a very important way of improving your recollection. Okay, rather than writing it down from scratch. Okay, if in online learning, printing out stuff is very, very important. Okay, having it in a hard copy. Take notes directly on a PPT if it's in a soft format. If you don't have a printer available right now, and because you're in a lockdown, you won't be able to buy a new printer, or if your cartridge is over, you can't get a new cartridge. Fine, then you can actually edit the, if you have a PDF also, you can put comments on a PDF. Okay, in a PPT, obviously you can do anything, but even if it's a PDF of a PPT, you can actually put comments in Adobe Acrobat Reader. You can actually put comments and all of that. So use those comment facilities to highlight stuff and put comments, so that you putting your notes within the document itself, not as a separate document. Okay, if you're watching a video which has a feature of captions, always switch them on. Have the running captions. Reading the text and listening to the text is far better than just having one of them. Okay, so in a video, if you can have the transcript scrolling down, please use the captions. Okay, it will really improve your comprehension of the video far, because there are chances, you might lose something on accents, you might lose something in, just because of the voice quality or whatever. So having the captions going below is always a great idea. Okay, so if the transcript is available, sometimes, in some certain platforms online, like in Coursera or something, along with the video, you have the entire transcript. Whatever the person is saying as on a sidebar or in the bottom. Copy it out and put it in your notes. Okay, it helps you a lot. All right, and read those transcripts while the video is going on. It's important. As I said, captions are important. If it's a live lecture, don't take down notes. Don't waste your time doing that. Okay, pay attention very, very closely. Okay, participate in the live discussions. That's how you're going to be able to actually, really know whether you've understood well. Okay, because otherwise you may have an understanding, or you may think that you've understood, and it might be very different from what the topic actually, or the presenter wanting to convey. So participating in discussions actually clarifies a lot of things. Okay, ask for the recording. Okay, if it's available. If not, you can use a screen recorder. I know many people won't allow it, but screen recorders are possible easily. Use a screen recorder, record the video. Okay, for your own sake, because you're not taking down the notes. Okay, because it's a live session, record it. Okay, if the recording is not going to be available to you, if it's a YouTube live or something like that, or even for today's session, as I said, we are recording live, and so we will be making that available to you. So even if you don't take down any notes right now, you can always review the entire session, and you can make your own notes later on. Okay, so use breakout sessions or breakout groups if possible, or if it's available. Many of these webinars nowadays have an option of having a short break where people can actually interact with each other for some time. Okay, use that in smaller groups and everything. You interact with people, talk to communicate, identify other fellow learners. It's an important thing to do. Okay, as I said, note taking in itself is an entire topic which I'm not going to cover today. How to take notes, but there is a nice little article, which is the link I have shared, which you can always go up listen to. Okay, another very important aspect of learning is learning with peers. Okay, so today, for example, there are 100 participants. Or identify, if you can find somebody who's like-minded. How do you identify that? By participating in group chats. So if you introduce yourself during discussion boards, if you talk to each other, if you give constructive comments, on peers and group, automatically it grows. And you can identify fellow learners. And once you start discussing with each other, with that participation, you will learn far more better. Right now, even if in the chat window, even if you don't have a question, you should put in a comment. You should just share something new which you know about it. Okay, if you know a technique, just write it down there in the chat window right now. So, like, if you know a technique to sleep better, if you know a technique to read better, if you know a technique to watch a video better, put it there. You need not have a question all the time. Okay, even if it helps you to learn from your peers, and interact with your peers. Okay, because one person starts, the other person starts, the third person wants to do it, everybody gets involved. And that's the entire idea of having an online forum, of having these kind of participative platforms like Zoom or WebEx, or Microsoft Teams or Google Hangout. It's all of that which helps in developing these. All right. So I should see more chat, being used at the during the session. All right. When it comes to communications, now I'm not talking about the technology. Um, you if you're learning something online, you need to interact with your instructor. Okay, even if it's a pre-recorded thing or something like that, you can actually write to your instructors. There are forums which you can question your instructors on, and they will reply. Please do that. Reflect and chat with your peers. Many of these MOOCs platforms have these forums where you can interact with your fellow learners. Use it. Okay. um, Also, sometimes when you're working with some kind of assignments or topics which you have to do, people tend to not share their learnings because they feel that they will be copied, and because of that they will get less grades or whatever. Don't share your assignment, but do share certain relevant insights. And if somebody asks something, please understand it's in good intent. Assume to be good intent even if it is not. Okay, because that aspect of sharing and understanding each other will really help you. Okay, so everyone is trying to do their best, believe me. On an online forum, when if you, especially if you paid money for a certificate and all that, everybody's trying to get the best out of it. Nobody has the time to waste. Today, if everybody has come online today to listen to me, it's because they want to learn something new. Okay, please do that. Also, when you communicate between people, especially if you're working on a group project or a group assignment or something like that, when you write an email or a text message, or you're using a discussion board or something like that, please give feedback. Feedback in the sense, when you say okay, okay, just don't write okay. Maybe just express whether you are happy with it, unhappy with it. Are you because there are no visual cues available. You can't see the person, so you don't know whether that okay is a smiling okay or a very sad okay. So that needs to be conveyed in your text. So you need to give reactions even while typing or even while writing an email. So give your reactions when you write. Okay, so that your emotions are conveyed correctly. Okay, as I said, once you've identified it, just collaborate. Group projects, group work is a phenomenal way of working. Okay, so if you can identify a group peer team, who work together on that same thing, it will motivate you to learn because each one is learning and helping with different aspects of learning. Okay, and how do you do any group assignment or a group work? First, plan on your tasks. You identify the tasks which you need to do. Okay, once these tasks are identified, you assign roles to these tasks. So you identify which person is going to do which role, and you identify the task, assign the task to these roles. Okay, this has to be done collaboratively, and that's an important aspect. Third is to identify a schedule of how you're going to meet these tasks. So if the assignment is going to take a week to complete, you need to know every day what are your targets. Okay, because only then you will be able to guarantee that everybody completes their work in time. Otherwise, you will have at the end of the week, you will find that one or two people have done the work and the remaining two or three people have not completed their work, and as a result, the entire assignment is missing. Okay, so please schedule this properly, and use collaborative technologies so that you know what the other person is doing. So things like Dropbox or Google Docs or whatever you want to use, so that you are aware at every given point of time what the other person is doing and whether they are completing their task or not in time, so that interventions can be put in place early. If something is going wrong, you can inform your instructors early that that somebody is not performing on the team. If the person needs to be cajoled, or even needs to be thrown out of the team, it can be done early if you can talk to your instructors in time rather than wait till the very end. Okay, so these are some of the things which we have looked at. Believe me, there are lots and lots of more things to discuss, but unfortunately, we don't have the time, and I have kept the last 5 minutes for the Q&A. So before I leave for today, or end the session for today, let me talk about what are the trends in online learning today. The future is not going to be just video and webinars. Okay, webinars is the current trend going around everywhere, but you have virtual reality coming in. Okay, which will change the entire perspective of how things happen. So things like people like using things like virtual labs will allow you to do things like pure sciences can be done online now. Okay, gamification will help improve a lot of things. One of the things which happens in management education, for example, people do a lot of activities in the classroom which are not possible in an online mode of learning. Online mode of learning becomes very, very lecture based. gamification will change that. Gamification has actually changed that in certain areas because some people have been able to implement it well. But as we go ahead, everything will become activity based rather than just videos, okay, or just text to read. There will be tasks to be done, activities to be performed on the online platforms, and this will change the entire way people learn. Okay, webinars obviously are going to be there to introduce new topics. It's a great way of doing it. Okay, so if you want to learn something in a nutshell, a very quick way of identifying whether you want to go deep into this or not, it's a good thing. So for today's webinar will allow you to understand that there is a whole way of learning which probably many people don't give a lot of thought to. Okay, and that's what I wanted to convey, that there are memory techniques which are there are reading techniques, there are listening techniques, there are way you can build your metacognition. All of this is important for learning, and unless we understand this, and as a teacher you have to know this. As a teacher I need to know this, because otherwise I don't know what my learners, my students actually are facing, okay, and how I can help them. Okay, once I know that, my task is to also make sure that the students know this, okay, before they start learning. Okay, if you don't know how to learn, it's very difficult to learn. Okay, e-learning obviously using LMSs and stuff like that is very very rampant and is growing like leaps and bounds. MOOCs courses and all of that is part of e-learning. Adaptive learning is something which is new term. These jargons keep coming up, in industry. So now the latest jargon is adaptive learning. Adaptive learning is where you merge these technologies into one. You use different things like VR, gamification, webinars, and put them into a mold wherein the using things like AI, you give customized learning solutions to every individual. That's what the broad definition of adaptive learning is, that the person will be able to learn the same material, but different users will be seeing different things because of how different they are. Okay, using artificial intelligence. Okay, so that's another concept of adaptive learning. These are things which are happening now. Okay, so that's exactly, I think, gives me a couple of minutes before time, so that if there are any questions, I'm more than happy to answer them.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We've got few questions, and these questions are in the chat window. If you can address them.
Okay. Saurabh, I would be happy if you could just read out the questions. I can answer. It would be time. It would take me time to just go through them.
Sure, sure.
Okay, so I'll
Uh,
start with one. By the time you can identify the others. Okay. So
sure.
Jaya Dudani asks, should the students be asked to keep their screens on or off in a video class? What's the best option? Okay. Now, a screen to be on is good if you have less than 10 people, because then as a presenter you can actually go through those screens. Okay, at the same time the bandwidth allows you to do that. If it's more than 10 people, okay, like for example right now, so if I have 100 people online, having screens on would not serve any purpose. I won't be able to go through all the 100 screens. At the same time, by doing that, I will lose focus on my presentation. I will lose focus on what I want to convey. So having screens on is good, or rather possible if you have less number of students. So ideally 5 to 6 people, great, you can do that. Okay, 10 is the maximum I will go to. Anything beyond 10, I wouldn't advise you to keep the screens on.
All right. We've got another question from Saira Khan. How to change negativity into positivity?
Oh, believe me, I don't have any magic wand. But if you're talking about negativity in terms of current situations and all of that, you need to we need to identify, if you are a teacher, if you are a presenter, then there is a different aspect. But if you're as a learner, it's a different thing. Okay, so I'm here to talk to you about learning today. So if you're a learner, your own negativity can only be changed by you. Okay, and you need to identify that if you want to learn something, what is the goal which I'm going to be able to achieve with it. As long as you don't see that, it's not going to happen. Okay, you cannot do you cannot learn something just because somebody else told you to do so. You need to be motivated enough to do that, and that motivation could be, or maybe that will gonna get you a better job. Maybe that motivation could be that it's gonna help you in your life. So just knowing how to learn, for example, will help you learn better. Okay, it will help you teach better. So it's important that you identify what you want to get out of any particular, course or any particular webinar which you want to attend. You need to know what what you want out of it before you take it up. Okay, and that's very, very important. If you don't do that, then it's very easy to get negative. Okay, because then you will be like, nahi yaar, what did like, for example, if somebody did not know whom, what is going to happen today, and people just came into thinking Asif sir is going to show, do a singing session, then you would be highly disappointed and negative today. Okay, because I did not sing for you. Okay, so you need to know, you need to come with the right expectations to the class. So you need to make sure that as a learner you have the right expectations, and as a teacher you set the right expectations. That's very important, that you set the right expectation.
Okay. There is a suggestion. Naina ma'am says that if you are not calm before going to sleep, listen to soft music. Then we've got a question. Should students be allowed to ask questions in between when the explanation is on?
Oh yes. Now this again is like, for example, in today's webinar, I said I will do at the end, because a webinar is very different from a lecturing. If I was doing suppose if I was doing a 10-hour course with you all, okay, on something, then I would suggest that asking questions in between is a good idea. Okay, so when I'm taking an online course, if it's a course, having questions and asking, actually encouraging students to ask questions as we go along is a good thing. If you are in a webinar kind of a mode where you're just doing like a 1 hour session, you might, you might digress too much if you allow questions at the start. Okay, so for example, if I allowed questions at the start, I might digress, and believe me, I know myself, I digress a lot. If I do, if so the PPT I keep with me is just to keep me on track, to make sure that I finish my presentation on time. Because all the colleagues of mine who are on in this presentation would be surprised that I finished it on time, because they all know me that once Asif starts, he doesn't know how to stop. Okay, so it's important when you are in a webinar that you understand time management, and therefore you would probably want the questions to come at the end, okay, rather than in between. But if you are running a course for students, you have to allow them to ask in between.
Okay. We've got another question quickly. How to keep students' engagement in online platform?
How to keep students engagement in online platform. Now, this is a question which all the MOOCs, platforms are suffering from. Coursera, Edudemy, everybody, you will be, I don't know if everybody knows this, but the completion rate is close to 5% for all of these. Okay, so you might get these big statistics about millions of users have have registered for these online courses in the last 20 days or 30 days. You will get these statistics, millions. But if you look at the statistics of completion rates, it's horrible. It's 3% to 5%. Okay, 5% is like a big thing. If any platform achieves 5%, they're very happy, very, very happy. But 3% is generally, generally all good platforms are able to achieve. There are even lower some individual courses will be even lower. So completion of a course on an online is a challenge, especially if it is not paid for. Say for example, if today's webinar, it's not paid for, people will leave in between. Okay, probably many have left.
Okay. We've got another good question from Pranav. He's writing, sir, how do we start with upgrading ourselves in step-by-step process and learning technology being from a non-IT background?
See, it doesn't matter. See, whenever you learn something, you are learning something new, right? If you're learning something new, it doesn't matter which background you come from. Technology or non-technology is not important. Motivation is important. You need to know why you want to study a technology. Okay, don't study a technology just because somebody told you. Okay, so if somebody tells you to learn Python, don't study Python. Okay, you need to know why you want to study Python. What are you going to be able to achieve out of Python? Unless you are able to unless you see that goal, okay, in front of you, you know, you won't be able to complete the course. Okay, especially with something very new. Like for example, as I said, for a non-technical person to learn technology, you need to know what you're gonna give. Okay, so if you're gonna learn, say for example, I'm somebody who is from technology. If I want to learn how to play a guitar, I need to really be motivated to learn that. If I don't, if I'm not motivated, Yes. Are there any more questions, Saurabh?
No, I don't think so. There are any further questions. I think thank you so much for the session, and I am sure people enjoyed it. And thank you everyone for being the part of it. You all can we'll be keeping further more sessions, and we'll be posting it on our Instagram handle. So you all can probably follow us on Instagram and get the updates of our further sessions. Thank you so much, sir, and thank you everyone.
Thank you everyone for joining. Hope to see you all soon. Okay, not in the lockdown. All the best. Stay safe.
Thank you.